Hi, this is Jason Major, and this is the Biblical Cinematic Universe, and I'm reviewing The Last Supper 2025 from Pinnacle Peak Pictures, not to be confused with The Chosen Last Supper. This one stars James Oliver Wheatley as St. Peter, Jamie Ward as Jesus Christ, Robert Nepter as Judas Iscariot, James Faulkner is probably the most famous actor in this as Caiaphas. And then there's Natalie Gomez as Mary Magdalene and Charlie McGeechan as John the Apostle, and a couple other actors are in here as well. So I want to talk about this film. It was filmed in Morocco, which is a film where a lot of these Bible films that are lower budget are filmed. And what I would like to, and it's produced by Chris Tomlin, and although he's just really executive producer because he liked the film and he helped finance its release. And then the creators of God's Not Dead, David Ayer White, for example, is one of the producers on the film. And Mauro Borelli is the director. And this film called The Last Supper, it works best to me as a chapter in the Biblical Cinematic Universe. That's right. Because it is a film, and so there's no prequel or sequel. But if you're watching a show like The Chosen, which ironically, around the same time, was releasing their 5th season, which was called The Chosen Last Supper, in theaters. So I don't know if that was a deliberate thing or just a coincidence. But if you're watching The Chosen, then you could watch a movie like this and say, like, hey, this is a good episode of the series. But because this is by itself, it's kind of maybe a little harder to get into, and I think you just need to know going in that this is more. It is not a Life of Jesus movie. It is not a movie that's like, told from their point of view necessarily of the life of Jesus, and it's not a Passion of Christ movie, right? So, like, although it is the Last Supper, it's really focused about that day before Jesus dies, and so like some Bible stories that aren't in the story. Spoiler alert for a movie based on the Bible. The feeding of the 5,000 is where it starts. So the disciples are already there. Feeding 5,000 is where it starts. Then we go now a year later, fast forwarded to, we see the Palm Sunday a little bit. We see a little bit of Jesus cleansing the temples. We see a lot of dialogue that's lifted from the Gospel of John, where Jesus talks about, I am the bread of life. But the bulk of this movie is really about that, like I said, the day before. Things like, there's a non-biblical storyline. There's a storyline with Judas of him encountering Satan as a serpent and as a demonic figure, which would play really well into like the Passion of Christ movie, even though they're very totally different, right? There's a lot of emphasis on Caiaphas as the high priest and his envy of Jesus. And John and Peter are the only other apostles that really get most of the attention. Peter being the main focus of the story in contrast to Judas. And that I thought was really interesting. They contrast Peter to Judas in this film. And also, there's a lot that helps you understand about what the Passover is from a Jewish context. So that's kind of interesting as well. Spoiler alert, but if you're talking about, like, does this film show the crucifixion, that's only a minor part of this movie. So like I said, it's kind of like, it goes all the way up to, like, the Jesus being taken before Caiaphas the judge, and Peter denying Jesus, and that's where, like, and then there is also the resurrection of Christ in this movie, but, like, the focus of this film, about 3/4 of it, is that middle chapter that's like the penultimate chapter before the Passion of Christ. I thought it was the guy playing Jesus. At first, I was jokingly calling him Walmart Jesus because I bought this movie at Walmart. But as the movie progressed, I thought he was fine, especially when it gets to the scenes where he's with his disciples. He gets to play a little bit more, and although you know the story, he does get to play some emotion with the disciples that allows him to be a little bit more. He does an okay performance. But my favorite characters were watching Peter and Judas. I enjoyed this movie, and I would give it from an entertainment value, I give it a 6 out of 10. But I think that in rewatching it, I'll enjoy it, especially since it'll be placed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it before my movies that are about Jesus and the Passion of Christ, so it'll play really well into those Passion of Christ movies. And that's what I have to say about this movie, is that it's filmed in Morocco, it is a lower budget, it is a slower paced movie, it is a quieter movie. So if you're looking for an action-packed movie about Jesus, or you're looking for an Academy Award-winning movie about Jesus, this ain't it. But if you're looking for just a nice meditation, that's what I think about when I think about these Bible films. That kind of like when you go to a sermon or you go to a church, you don't necessarily go, well, that sermon, I'm visiting this church, and that sermon wasn't as exciting as the one I heard Sunday last week. I'm sure you could do that, but generally we go and we just listen to the sermon and enjoy the sermon. Yeah, I enjoy these Bible movies. So go, I would say, watch the trailer. If it looks interesting to you, here's another chapter of the Biblical Cinematic Universe. Thank you.